Welcome to Singapore Property Talk Law. We are diving deep today into the really high end of Singapore's real estate market. Think sprawling mansions, eye-watering price tags.
Absolutely. We're zoning in on those iconic good-class bungalows, GCBs.
Exactly. And if you've ever wondered, who is splashing out on these super exclusive properties, and maybe why Singapore is still such a magnet for the global ultra-rich, even with all the uncertainty elsewhere, well, you are definitely in the right place.
We've gathered quite a bit of information to really unpack the who and the why behind some of these massive deals making headlines.
We have, so stick with us because we're going to explore what this huge concentration of wealth might mean for Singapore. And hey, right off the bat, if you find this deep dive valuable, do us a solid, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our future explorations.
Yeah, definitely do that. Now, what's immediately striking is how Singapore's top-end property market is seen as a real safe haven, amidst global volatility.
That safe haven idea comes up a lot.
It really does. And we're seeing more and more ultra-high net worth individuals, more family offices setting up shop here. It lines up perfectly with Singapore's push to be a major global wealth hub.
And it's not just traditional wealth, is it? I think we saw mentions of buyers from the crypto space too.
That's right, which is interesting in itself, maybe signaling some maturing in that sector as well, new money finding its way into these very established assets.
Okay, let's get down to basics first. GCBs. Everyone talks about them at the peak of the market here. But what exactly is a good class bungalow? Is it just a fancy term for a massive house?
That's a fair question. Bungalow can mean different things elsewhere. But here in Singapore, GCBs are, well, they're a very specific, legally defined class of property.
How so?
They're restricted to just 39 designated areas, gazetted GCB areas. And critically, there are strict planning rules. Minimum land size is key. 1,400 square meters, which is about 15,000 square feet.
15,000 square feet minimum.
Okay.
That's substantial.
It is. And you can't just build upwards indefinitely either. There's a height limit, typically 2 stories, plus maybe an attic and basement. And sleek coverage rules ensure there's plenty of green space. It preserves that spacious, exclusive feel.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just about being big. It's this specific location in these zones and the low density rules that must really limit the supply.
Exactly right. Their scarcity is fundamental. We're talking about only around 2,700 GCPs in total across all of Singapore. That's it.
It's just 2,700.
Wow. So that inherent rarity plus the prestige factor, it's a major part of the appeal.
And why are they specifically seen as this wealth preservation hedge? What does it really mean when someone's buying one?
Well, buyers aren't just looking for a nice place to live, although obviously they are spectacular homes. They see GCBs as a really tangible asset, a store of value.
Like gold bars, but a house.
Kind of. The land itself is the key thing. It's scarce, it's irreplaceable, it's protected by those planning rules we mentioned. So when economic times feel uncertain, assets like this, especially freehold land.
Freehold, that means you own the land itself, outright, forever, not like a 99-year lease.
Precisely. Most property in Singapore is leasehold, often 99 years. GCBs are overwhelmingly freehold, or sometimes have extremely long leases. That adds a huge layer of perceived long-term security. As compared to, say, stocks or bonds that can fluctuate wildly, putting capital into a GCB feels more concrete, more stable. It's about preserving significant wealth, often with the idea of passing it down through generations.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Freehold, scarcity, prestige.
Got it.
Now let's dive into the examples because the names and numbers involved recently are pretty staggering. We've seen some huge deals.
Yeah, let's look at the activity over the last couple of years, starting with the most recent ones mentioned, going into 2025.
Right, 2025. There was one deal that really jumped out. Ms. Diana Te, she's the daughter of the late founder of Malaysia's public bank, right? She signed a deal for a GCB on Tanglin Hill.
Yeah.
It was a price. It was a record $93.9 million.
$93.9 million. That's quite a number. And the property itself sounds incredible. About 2,750 square meters, 2 stories.
And the extras. A 25-meter pool with a tanning deck, a walk-in wine chiller.
And get this, an 18-seater private home theater.
18 seats. Okay, that's definitely not your average home cinema setup. That screams good class.
It certainly does. Also in 2025, we saw the sons of the Koufu founder, Mr. Pang Lim, along with Miss Ang Hoon Tien, striking a deal for a Caldecott Hill GCB site. That one was for $58 million.
Caldecott Hill. What
Yeah.
was special about that site?
Well, it's quite unique. A large freehold plot, nearly 40,000 square feet. And it actually has two bungalows on it, separated by just a low wall. One has a garden, the other has an attic and a pool.
2 homes on one plot. Interesting.
And it has some history, too. Apparently owned by a well-known diamond merchant back in the 60s, housed 3 generations of his family. So there's that legacy element as well, which often appeals to buyers in this category.
Legacy, space, flexibility. Makes sense.
Okay.
Moving back just a bit to 2024, the market seemed just as hot then.
It really was. In 2024, Mr. Glenn Cook, he's the nephew of the Wilmar International chairman, bought a $49 million bungalow on Astrid Hill. That was with his mother, Mrs. Lee Young-la, a freehold site over 21,000 square feet.
And another big name from the tech world popped up, Mrs. Malikan, the wife of C's Forrest Lai. She was reportedly buying a GCB on Gallup Road for $42.5 million.
That's right. And what's interesting there is that this is apparently their second GCB in the Gallup Road area. It's very near the Botanic Gardens, a super prime location.
Second one. Okay, and who was the seller?
The children of the late Dr. Gordon Koo. It's also worth noting, as the details pointed out, that both Mr. Lee and Mrs. Ma are Singapore citizens, so strong local buying at the very top end, too.
Good point. And we also saw moves from some very established Singaporean families. Mr. Grant Wee, the grandchild of the late UOB patriarch Wee Cho Yaw.
Yes, he bought a $39.5 million mansion on Ford Avenue. That was from the former Keppel CEO, Mr. Chow Chow Bang, another big plot, around 19,500 square feet.
And wasn't there another Wee family purchase around that time?
There was. A nephew of the late Mr. Wee Cho Ya, a Mr. Wee Boo Tea, also picked up a GCB for $23 million. Smaller site, but still substantial at over 15,000 square feet.
Yeah.
It really shows how these properties play a role in, intergenerational wealth and family asset holding.
Definitely. So it's a mix of established local money and newer global wealth. Okay, let's rewind a bit further. How was this trend shaping up in 2023 and 2022?
2023 had a really remarkable cluster purchase. Singaporean members of the family behind First Resources, the big palm oil group.
Yes.
They bought not one, not two, but 4 bungalows on Nassim Road.
4 GCBs on Nassim Road, all at once.
Pretty much. 3 were acquired from Cuscaden Peak Investments for about $206.7 million, and then they bought a 4th from another private investor for $88 million.
Wow, so that's nearly $295 million combined, just on Nassim Road GCBs.
Almost $295 million. It signals a really strategic, large-scale consolidation of assets in one of the most prestigious GCB locations.
Unbelievable scale. Okay, and 2022.
2022 also had its share of headlines. Mr. Sean Shi, one of the co-founders of Haidilao, the hot pot chain,
Right, I remember that one.
he paid $50 million for a freehold GCB on Cluny Hill. This one was acquired from the estate of Dr. Lee Wei-ling.
And the price per square foot on that was mentioned, wasn't it? Something like $2,740 PSF. Can you just quickly remind us what PSF means again?
Sure, PSF is just price per square foot. You take the total price and divide it by the land area. It gives you a standardized way to compare value across different size plots.
Got it. So how did that $2,740 PSF stack up against the market back then?
Interestingly, it was noted as being slightly below the typical rate for Cluny Hill GCBs at the time, which were apparently trading closer to the $3,000 to $4,000 PSF mark.
Huh. Any idea why?
Could be many reasons, maybe the specific condition of the property or perhaps a motivation for a quicker sale from the estate. Another interesting detail was that this GCB is apparently near the Haidilao chairman's own GCB.
Ah, keeping it close within the company leadership, maybe?
Perhaps, or just favoring the same exclusive neighborhood. Now, 2022 also brought in those buyers from the crypto world we touched on earlier.
Yes, that was quite something. Tell us about that again.
Well, Mr. Zhu Su, co-founder of the crypto hedge fund 3 Arrows Capital, which later collapsed, he bought a $48.8 million GCB on Yarwood Avenue back in March 2022.
And what happened with that property?
It was later used as an urban farm, apparently run by a company co-founded by his wife, Mrs. Evelyn Tao.
And Miss Diao herself had some GCB dealings, even with all the Three Arrows issues going on.
She certainly did. She'd bought a GCB on Dalvey Road back in 2020 for $28.5 million. And then, quite remarkably, managed to sell it in 2024 for $51 million, despite the whole asset freeze situation surrounding her husband's fund.
$51 million. Wow, that's a significant profit, even in a strong market.
Absolutely. And the information also mentioned that the wife of the other Three Arrows co-founder, Kyle Davies, Mrs. Kelly Chen, had bought a bungalow in Rideout Park, which was reportedly being sold for around $37 million. These examples really underscore the kind of rapid wealth generation and sometimes subsequent unwinding that happened in certain sectors
Yeah.
and how it directly flowed into this ultra-luxury property market.
Quite the roller coaster. It really shows this market isn't just for old money or traditional industrialists. Okay, let's look back one more year to 2021. That year saw some records tumble too, didn't it?
It really did. 2021 was a huge year, especially for those price per square foot records. Mrs. Jin Shaoquan, the wife of the nanofilm founder, made waves buying a Nassim Road GCB for $128.8 million.
$128.8 million.
And that was from Ms. Sukmawati Wajaja of the Sinar Mas family.
That's the one. And at the time, that purchase set a new GCB record in terms of price per square foot.
But that record didn't stand for long, did it? No, it was actually broken later that same year by Mr. Tommy Ong, the founder of Stamped.io, an e-commerce tech company. He reportedly paid $63.7 million for a GCB on Clooney Hill.
And the play us buff on that one was?
An incredible 4,291 PSF. The plot was just under 15,000 square feet.
Wow. Over $4,000 PSF back in 2021. That's a serious benchmark. Was that common then?
Not at all. That purchase by Mr. Ong was actually one of only 2 GCB sales recorded above the $4,000 PSF mark that entire year. So really a landmark deal.
Any other big ones from 2021 that caught your eye?
Yes, another tech founder making moves, Mr. Ian Ang, the CEO of Secret Lab, the gaming chair company.
Yes, Secret Lab. Very successful Singapore brand.
Indeed. He bought a $36 million GCB in the Caldecott Hill area. And interestingly, it was noted that in the same week, he also snapped up a $15 million penthouse at Leiden Residence.
A GCD and a luxury penthouse basically at the same time.
Yep. It really highlights the sheer scale of wealth generated by some successful founders and also maybe a desire to diversify within high-end property itself, not just putting all the eggs in one GCB basket, so to speak.
Good point. So while GCBs are clearly the pinnacle, this interest from the ultra-rich isn't only about GCBs, is it? They're looking at other types of high-value property here, too.
Exactly. The focus isn't solely on bungalows. They're making significant investments in other prime asset classes within Singapore real estate as well.
Like what else? You mentioned a couple of examples earlier.
Yes. For instance, in 2024, Mrs. Zhang Ying Jack Ma's wife, who is also a Singaporean citizen, she reportedly paid somewhere between $45 million and $50 million for 3 adjoining shop houses right on Duxton Road in Tanjong Pagar.
Shop houses. Very different vibe from a GCB. Often commercial, historical.
That's right. These are commercial-zoned, 99-year leasehold starting from 1988, so, around 63 years left on the lease now. 3 floors plus an attic on a combined plot of about 3,200 square feet.
Still a huge amount for shop houses, though.
It is, and interestingly, it was also noted that Ms. Zhangyan's thought to have bought a GCB in the Astrid Park area back in 2023, possibly for over $80 million, using a trust structure. So again, diversification seems key GCBs and commercial shop houses.
Definitely spreading the investments around. Any other non-GCB big deals?
Well, back in 2021, Ray Dalio, the founder of the massive hedge fund Bridgewater Associates.
The Ray Dalio.
The very same. He paid $25.5 million for 2 shop houses on Club Street in Chinatown, and this was done through his Dalio family office.
The family office connection again.
Exactly. It ties right back into that trend. He'd announced he was opening a family office here in Singapore back in 2020, so acquiring property, perhaps as part of the office's asset allocation strategy, makes perfect sense.
Aligning the physical presence with the investment strategy. Got it. Any other major non-GCB plays?
Yes, one really massive one from 2021, a Taiwanese family, the one behind the Want snack food empire.
Want. Okay.
They paid $293 million to buy all 20 units of the entire Eden Tower condominium at 2 Draycott Park right near Orchard Road.
The entire building,
Yeah.
all 20 apartments.
The whole tower, freehold. It's more than just a bulk purchase. It's acquiring the entire asset. It just demonstrates the incredible scale of capital looking for a stable home in Singapore's property market.
Buying a whole condo tower. That's definitely a statement. It really shows that these ultra-wealthy individuals and families, they're not just sticking to one thing. They're looking across GCBs, shop houses, entire residential blocks. They clearly see long-term value here.
Without a doubt, it demonstrates broad confidence across different segments of the high-end market.
Okay, wow. We've covered a huge amount there. Record deals, big names from tech, finance, F&B, commodities, local dynasties, global players, and properties ranging from GCBs to shop houses to entire towers. Let's pull this all together. What does this intense activity really tell us about Singapore's place in the world for the ultra-rich right now?
Well, I think it paints a very clear, very consistent picture. Singapore property, particularly GCBs, but also other prime assets, remains exceptionally desirable for global billionaires and multimillionaires. The examples we ran through show buyers from literally all corners, established local families, new tech wealth, food and beverage tycoons, commodity giants, heirs, even that crypto wave we saw.
And the core reasons that safe haven idea, wealth preservation, those seem to be holding firm.
Absolutely. These transactions just keep reinforcing those fundamentals. Singapore's reputation for stability, political and economic, the strong rule of law, plus the government's active strategy to attract and manage global wealth, like promoting family offices.
And the GCBs themselves, their unique nature.
That scarcity factor is crucial. It makes them function as this unique wealth preservation tool, quite distinct from other properties. And the fact that we see buyers acquiring multiple assets or consolidating plots like that Nassim Road deal, it suggests quite sophisticated long-term strategic thinking is going on.
So even with high prices, even with things like government cooling measures that pop up now and then, the fundamental appeal for this very specific, very wealthy segment, it seems unwavering, maybe even growing.
That really seems to be the key takeaway from all this activity. The sustained volume of deals, the eye-watering prices, the record beast rates being hit, and just the sheer caliber of the buyers involved. It all points to incredibly strong confidence in Singapore as a stable, strategic place to park very significant amounts of capital for the long haul.
Right. So we've really dug into some fascinating examples today, looking at these huge GCB deals, the shop house acquisitions, even that entire condo tower purchase. It's crystal clear that Singapore's top-tier real estate is a major global destination for wealth.
And these aren't just numbers on a page, are they? They represent massive capital flows, strategic decisions by some of the world's wealthiest people.
It really does make you think about the broader impact, doesn't it? Thinking beyond just the property market itself. With these ongoing global shifts, this concentration of wealth continuing, and Singapore actively positioning itself as this premier wealth hub. What might the long-term effect of all this high-value property buying be? How could it reshape not just the physical landscape, but maybe the city's economic and social fabric over time?
Well, that's a pretty complex question to ponder.
It certainly is. A lot to think about there.
Indeed. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Singapore's ultra-luxury property scene. We really hope this exploration gave you a much clearer picture of the who, what, and why at the very top end of the market.
Thank you. It was fascinating to discuss.